Hi.
First
Just
thing
kidding.
on every
It needs to
episode.
be the first thing.
Yes. Now that we've established that, we can move right ahead.
hmm
Right.
Well, I advertised it on Facebook again, but seeing as no one expressed interest last time, I wouldn't count on any extra viewers.
That is okay. Let me just make sure my stream up, if you wouldn't mind loading up and just making sure I have video.
Yep, I did, and I heard myself say, why, and then I closed it.
Okay. Yeah, because my layout's kind of being my dashboard's being messed up. Okay. So, anyways, welcome to episode 5, guys, of Into the Void. It says episode 3, but it's actually episode 5. I'll have to make the adjustment. I left it in there as my my template a couple episodes back. So this is episode 5. Today we're going to be going over something very, very important to Protoss, and that would be Pylons. Now, Pylons. What are Pylons, Jay Shore? What is this magical word?
They're the first building you build. They start with a P. They give you 8 supply. They're the cheapest building you build, and they're the building you build the most of.
Oh, that or gateways.
No, I think you'll build more pylons. Let's see.
Possibly. Throughout the
200,
course of the game. Unless it's like endgame.
At least 20 pylons, assuming you have 4 bases.
Okay, so I'll make a lot of pylons and cannons.
A lot.
If you're playing against Metalisks, and you have a lot of cannons too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, exactly. And what instinctively do you think of when you're thinking of in-game when you construct a pylon?
These could be so much more useful than I make them, but I don't have the APM or the patience to figure out how to make them more useful, so I'm just going to throw them all over my base and make it look like a huge mess.
Make a smiley face and just put
Yeah, basically.
Well,
Because my primary use is just as a thing to have supply so I can make an army.
alright, so army first, pylon second.
Yeah.
Well, today's episode we're going to be focusing on why pylons and being conscious about what pylons can do for you, where to put your pylons, can be very effective and worthwhile. Unlike the other races, like Terran, where they don't really care about the supply depots, and Zerg can use their overlords for scouting, so sometimes they can position those around the map. Protoss kind of want to do that too. Protoss has the added benefit of, well, the warp and mechanic, unlike the other races. Which means wherever you have power, you have army. You have power, you have defense, you have power, you have offense. You could use pylons to harass, you could use pylons to forgate, pylons to do all sorts of shenanigans and cannons, and you can make wonderful things happen, Jay Shore, with pylons and pylon placement.
Yes.
With that in mind, we're going to be jumping into a game shortly to talk about what we can do with pylons and play a game here in just a moment. And I also have a replay of a recent game just on North America that I was able to find because Jay Shore's Korean is unavailable at this time. And we're going to go over exactly what we can do with pylons. So let's jump into a game.
Should set myself to busy.
Let's go to Shadow Temple. That sounds like a decent map.
I have to download that.
Oh.
Because I don't have anything anymore. Apparently.
Are you downloading it?
I am.
Okay.
75.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
There we go.
Alright. So you pick whatever race you want.
Alright.
And let me know when you're ready.
Go, go.
Go. Alright, so it looks like it's going to be Protoss versus Zerg. Now, pylons are definitely very, very important in Protoss versus Zerg. It's very important in all matchups, but definitely very important in PvZ. One reason is because you kind of need to SimCity yourself. You need to wall against Zerg. And if I'm doing some things like Forge Fast Expands or even a Gateway Expand, it's very important for me to have a decent wall off. Give out the good luck, have fun, sir.
You have not enough minerals.
Can't believe I didn't completely butcher my start.
You mean you gotta split off?
I got to split off. I made the drone first, and I hotkeyed everything correctly without accidentally sending my overlord to mine.
Wow.
It felt pretty nice.
Count. Like, this is... Alright, so the first thing I want to do is get my first pylon at 9, and I want to set up a wall. And I'm going to go scout out.
You have not
I'm gonna
enough
just...
minerals. You have not
You don't have to worry about hearing everything I'm doing. For all intents and purposes, I'm just letting those who are watching this know.
paused.
Second, my controls are... They didn't save. I'm going to put some... I need to have my timer and everything on.
That's fine. Let me know. So for those who are wondering why I just set my probe out, I'm actually looking for his overlord on the corner of the map, so I can get an idea of where his spawn is. Now, since Shadow Temple is no longer close spawns, he can only be in one of two positions, so I'll try and eliminate one of the positions by using this probe around the 1 minute mark and look around the corner of the map for that overlord.
Alright, you ready?
Yep. Go. My pylon should be finishing right about now. Get my chrono on. Now look, notice my pylon placement. This is actually going to be my PVZ type of wall off that I've currently have adopted. I personally like it. It's easier to defend against things like 6 poles and the sword.
You have not enough minerals. You have not enough minerals.
Nice. Very nice. Alright. So we basically just go play into a normal game, looking for, see what Zerg's doing. So now we're getting to the point where we want our second pylon. Now we're thinking, okay, we have the pylon for our wall. Now we want to, this is usually my second pylon in all matchups, is what I call the infrastructure pylon. This one you want to have in a decent area to, one, explore your base. You want it in an area where it gives you the most coverage of your own base. You don't want anything silly like proxy hatcheries or seeing something like 2 racks in your base or bunker rushes in your base or pylons in your base from Protoss. You don't want to see any of that. So this is one reason you're going to want to get a pylon that's decently in the center somewhere, giving you the most amount of vision possible in your base from just one pylon. Also, it's called the infrastructure pylon because you kind of want to have it have a full circle radius so that you can put your buildings around it. Because at the second pylon, for the most part, in most matchups, that's when you're going to be putting down most of your tech, but getting down most of your buildings. And you don't want to put a pylon in a terrible spot like behind your mineral line and have nowhere to build, because then you can't build your buildings, and then it'll be a lot harder as the game progresses. Then your units are going to get stuck in between buildings, and you're just going to be a sad panda.
And being a sand panda is never fun.
No, definitely. It's the opposite of fun. Now we're going to be getting our next pylon.
Must construct additional pylons.
We're going to want to get this pylon, considering we're playing Zerg. This is the 24 pylon. We're going to be getting this. I usually do it three boxes down from the ramp, so I can set up a 3x3 hex building on top of there. Because I don't like to wall off like my ramp with the pylon, because it's usually very vulnerable. So if I get hit with Balings or something to the weaker part of the pylon, they don't just run up my ramp and go crazy. With that in mind, I'm currently out some units.
Justice speak.
And getting the rest of my infrastructure.
We are the blades of iron.
So I'm gonna be using the 16 pylon at my natural a little bit later, because for now I'm gonna be going for a fast expand, and I'm not gonna be getting that my tech. Usually, if I'm going for Twilight or Robotics or Stargate, that's where, with that 16 pylon in the base, that's where that tech will go. Now I'm gonna be getting my wall up. As you can see, that's why this one pylon is very important. You can see that the radius gives me enough of an area to start setting up a pretty decent wall. I can get my units down here and even set up an additional pylon to get my units into full wall off. And from here, I'm just going back into my macro, focusing on pylons as I need. Worry about now. So now this part is where I wanted to get another pylon. Now that I already have one coming up, it's going to give me a good supply. But I need one to keep me going, because now this is the part in the game where that's okay to double up. Double up is a term where you say, okay, get one pylon, get another one for the next one. Because as the game progresses, your supply catch, it gets higher and higher a lot faster because of the fact that you can either you're on more bases, you can reinforce a lot faster, more production facilities, you're getting units like Tier 3 Colossus, whatever the case may be. You're going to find you're going to need to be doubling up and tripling up, and getting 2 pylons per and 3 pylons per. So every time you need a pylon, you're going to need to get more and more. So after the early game, once you get the first batch of units out, you're going to need to start thinking about that. And that's usually when you get around the time that you get your first tech building. So for all intents and purposes, say I'm going to be getting this robotics facility. Everything out of the robotics facility is going to start costing 4 supply, 6 supply. It's going to be costing a lot. Everything except for the observer, really. The observer is the only unit that is not going to hammer me for not having enough supply. And then as I continue to warp in, of course, my supply is going to be catching up relatively quickly. I'm going to be chrono boosting out of 2 Nexi now, so I'm going to be catching up with my supply in probes that much faster also. So I'm doubling my production with workers. That means I need to be conscious about my supply. You'd never want to get supply blocked. As the game progresses, it's a lot harder to remember doing things like, okay, I need pylons in the middle of a battle, or we talked about crisis control last week. And it's very important to be conscious about that. Jay Shower, what do you think about crisis control, managing your base, and still keeping up with pylons and not get supply blocked?
It's difficult. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's very, very difficult to do correctly and keep on top of everything.
Do you have a way that you do it? And
fail at it. I'm not good at it. I just haven't come up with a good method of getting everything done.
Advice. Well, I actually created something called that I always tried to, back when I was doing some coaching, to give some advice to my students when I noticed that they were getting supply blocked a lot. And that was, you create your probes. It's a 4-step cycle. Create your probes. You're going to warp in. After you warp in, you're going to get a pylon or 2, depending on which stage of the game you're in. After that, you're going to either attack or defend. And you kind of just rinse and repeat. This is kind of like the macro cycle.
Not enough energy.
So you're going to make your probes. You always make your probes check. Probes in production, okay. Warp in, warp in, warp in. If it's on cooldown, keep going with the rest of the cycle. Once you warp in, then you get your pylons. So basically, every time you're warping in, you need to be thinking about pylons. Every time I get a unit out of this robotics facility, I need to say, oh, I need to get a pylon. Or if I see if I already have some in production, or you always need to check. Because sometimes you will warp something in. I've happened to me all the time. I'll warp in some pylons, and then I forget that I warped it in during a heavy, intense game where it's back and forth, and I'll have to double check myself. I'll say, oh, did I put up a pylon? Because if I didn't, I'll be in trouble. So let's talk about, we talked about some, you can see how I'm putting these pylons around. I'm trying to give myself the most map vision, looking for overlords, looking for drops. I'm putting some down here. You always want to have at least 1 pylon as soon as you make a nexus. Why? So it's easy to warp in and defend against drops. You always want, basically, every time I put up a nexus, I have at least 1 pylon put up at the same time as that nexus. It goes up. So warp in, warp in, warp in. Add extra. My warp prism. Dynamutalisks. I'll add some extra gates, add some more infrastructure. You can see how this infrastructure pylon is housing the majority of my attack. Now, it's very important that in the early game, it's okay to have all these buildings powered by 1 pylon, because I really can't afford to be like, alright, I'm going to get 2 pylons here, because I don't want it. It's okay to do that. But in the mid-game, you want to make sure that you don't have what's called an Artosis pylon, which is 1 pylon powering everything. And this is primarily where, like I said, that this is what I call this infrastructure pylon. It's important to double up right here. So you need to have at least 2 to 3 pylons powering this bad boy. So that if Zerg or Protoss or Terran comes over here and takes out this 1 pylon, of course you don't want all of these gates and robotics, whatever tech you have, to be unpowered, or you'll be in trouble. So now we're moving out. Now we need to be thinking about our pylon placement, our offensive pylons, our forward pylons, etc. So it's very important to set up these pylons in an area that's not completely retarded, where it'll get sniped, obvious, but we also don't want it to be too far back and safe that we can not benefit from